these people join, and then we'll start. Host tools. You cannot unmute yourself. There we go. Okay, cool. We got some people here. I don't know. I'm just out of sorts when I do these. I'm not quite with it right now. So, anyways, as you may or may not know, I'm known as Eli the Computer Guy. My current project is something called silicondojo.com. The idea is, what if high quality technology education was as available as water, basically? And so part of that is I'm bringing guests on to have conversations about the real world of technology. One of the big problems we get into is everybody goes to school, everybody gets certifications, and then they come out and they're just not qualified to actually do work because they have no idea why we get paid. So I bring people on to explain why we get paid. Last week we had Martin Lehner on, and I asked him the value of cybersecurity degrees, and he literally said when he sees only a cybersecurity degree, it goes directly in the trash can. Doesn't even read the damn thing. So you folks get to destroy their poor little spirits, not me. So cool. Hey Steve, how you doing?
Fantastic, Eli. How about yourself?
Oh, good. So we got Steve Newman. So you are the Director of Business Development for ERC Broadband. That's correct?
Yes, that is one of my many roles and titles here.
Oh, it's one of your many, many roles in title. How many titles and roles do you got?
Two official titles, and the last line in all of our job descriptions states, and anything else as is needed. So my other role, Director of Community Development Projects, but I have rolled fiber, I have cleaned bathrooms, I have cooked food, whatever it takes to, continue the enduring projects that we navigate, I am happy to tackle.
You got that smiley face on. Are you sure you're happy to tag? Is Brad off of camera threatening you right now?
Is he in earshot? Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we talk about ERC broadband. So you're a local ISP, right? So
Yes,
we, yeah. So tell us a little bit about ERC broadband. What do you guys do?
sure. I'll just add one qualifier to that. We're a fiber ISP, right? An FISP. We
Okay.
only deal in fiber. And so we have 1,500, 1,700 miles, and we had more prior to Helene of fiber installed all across Western North Carolina. Our modality is basically delivering dedicated fiber internet services or fiber network services to businesses in our region. We only work in our region. We're 23, 24 employees, but everything we do is basically footprint inside of Western North Carolina. The business has been around for over 20 years, started as a not-for-profit, delivering fiber services up the mountains into Western North Carolina as an initiative from an old senator who wanted to connect the cities and educational centers in Western North Carolina with the rest of the state.
Okay. So you say the region though. I thought because I did a fireside chat with Brad. If you guys want to watch it, it's on the YouTube channel. I thought you guys like went all the way up into Virginia or something. You guys have a bigger footprint than just Western North Carolina.
So we deliver enterprise services to Western North Carolina. But as part of that, nobody just wants to communicate with Western North Carolina. They want to communicate with the world.
Yeah.
So we have strands of connectivity up into Ashburn, Virginia, into Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia, where we connect to basically backbones of the World Wide Web.
Okay.
So, we spread fiber all throughout our region for businesses, and then we extend into areas where we can better reach the rest of the world.
That's interesting. So I know like when I was in Baltimore and I knew people who ran ISPs or really WISPs, so wireless internet service providers. I'm not an ISP, so if I screw up these words, that's fine. I think they would connect into something called a TLEC. So Baltimore has a number of, I guess, fiber, like the fiber lines that run to it. So you go to the t telco, you rent something out of, I think it was called a TLEC facility, and that's how they got their internet service. Does Asheville or does this area have that kind of fiber, or are you guys the fiber?
It's a little bit of both. We have the most amount of fiber in the area, to my knowledge. Other providers come into our data center to, I'll say, cross-pollinate, right, to communicate with each other. And we are, I can't call us a TLEC or an ILEC in that regard, when we really are just a fiber internet service provider. But because we have so much connectivity, it behooves other businesses to connect to us in our facilities. And we do the same, right? We interact with them. We also share their fiber in order to have the best path to certain areas across the world.
All right. So then why? So, I mean, you guys are small. You said like 24 employees or something. So why do you guys have like, I guess better question. Why can you have 1,700 miles of fiber? Isn't this something that just Verizon or AT&T or one of the baby bells would have done? Like, why are you even competitive? Why can this even happen?
A great question. So I will thank Senator Charles Taylor for the initiative, and this was way, way, way pre me, in the early 2000s to want to bring fiber out to Western North Carolina. Um, the ability for a community to grow is directly related with the reliability and the resilience of its ability to communicate across the internet. It's directly linked. And so he recognized that, created the initiative to start to bring fiber into our area. That's how ERC first started. We were part of that partnership to bring that fiber. And so, as such, we sort of owned the first footprint of fiber in our area. And as need grew, and we put more fiber into the ground based on need, attached to our specific mission for education, research, and governance and policy, we had more and more footprint in the area. Now, Spectrum and AT&T and other providers did have fiber coming through, but they didn't have the real initiative and the drive to expand in our area. But we did, as a 100% local organization serving our neighbors and our friends. We wanted to make sure that they had the best possible service. And so we grew, let's say, semi-organically, in that we had this government contingent expanding us, but our own desire to serve our community. I say fast forward 15 years, and we decided to switch or transition to a for-profit network that can really, really focus on faster expansions. But over that first 18 to 20-ish years, 18 to 20 years, a lot of that growth was funded by government, nonprofit, orchestrated municipal-based expansions. And then over the last, 5-ish%, maybe 20% of our growth has really been focused on serving directly into our community, the community institution, the businesses.
Hmm. So did you guys run into the problem? So when they try to do municipal ISPs then sued the ever-loving crap out of the cities that try to do it. So are you somehow different than that kind of municipal ISP, or did the ISPs literally care so little about Western North Carolina they didn't bother suing you?
Oh, no, no, they cared so much that it's now like a state regulation, right? So our municipalities couldn't do it themselves. It required a third party to do it. And so the ERC and MCNC were the two entities that were really building it out, but we were separate. We were a service to the cities, the towns, the communities. So they weren't, they all were paying for our service. And so it wasn't directly related to the towns.
No,
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Tennessee does it right. A
How was
lot
that?
of, a lot of other states can, do it that way and can serve that way, and it makes so much sense. But it also reduces going that route. It's got its pros and cons. It reduces the competitiveness, and so if there's good competition, if there's strong competition, you get better pricing and better service. because if you don't have both, you're no longer going to be serving that customer. And so that's where we focused 100% on, what we can say proudly in our community is you will get the best internet service, then you will get the best customer service, hands down.
Okay. And so you're focused on fiber. So you started as a nonprofit, you turned into a profit. I'm not quite sure what happened there. We'll skip over that. So is the fiber, so a lot of people don't realize when you create a nonprofit, you have to create the mission statement or whatever, and then you actually have to stay pretty close to that. So with you guys only doing fiber, is this a business decision based off of 2025, or is this legacy based off of how that 501(c)(3) was created?
Both, right? So the entity that got started recognized that fiber was the best method of communication. It was what everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
Now we still recognize it as the best method of communication. A fibered connection is going to be way stronger, way more resilient, less interference, less latency, less problems. The one thing that we've done recently at becoming a for-profit organization is we no longer have to do things at the lowest bid and the lowest cost. There aren't things that restrict us from our growth. And what we have done over the last 10-ish years, 5 starting as the not-for-profit and 5 operating as the for-profit, is ring out our communities. And what I mean is a topology. If you think about a circle providing service, that's a ring. If any piece of this is broken, everybody can still communicate, less the break point, because traffic can route through the other sides. And so we build huge rings around towns. And then within the towns, we also build rings through major thoroughfares so that if any one break happens, none of our customers are negatively impacted by it. And even the customer who might be closest to it can still have another pathway out. So that is expensive to do. Very, very expensive to do. I would say we got a 15-year head start being a not-for-profit, being able to have the core structure of that. And then, over the last 5-10 years, we've been able to just sort of connect dots. And we just do it better than AT&T, Spectrum, or anybody else. We care more. And the other thing is, when you build it better and stronger, your engineers get to sleep more at night.
Fair enough.
That's a good thing.
But with that, I mean, with internet service, if you're providing for Western North Carolina, like why not add a WISP component, like the wireless internet service provider component, or some other way to connect people too?
Yeah, it's too much work. We focus, right? So there are businesses, businesses whose model is to create something and expand and expand and expand. And you become, part of my language, the jackass across all these capabilities. We don't want that. We want to be absolutely fine-tuned, focused on providing the best possible service across a single product line. And that's what we do. There are WISPs in our area that utilize ERC for their backbone and their internet connectivity. They get directly into the weeds, into the small residences, providing direct service to the household, but their backhaul all comes through ERC.
Oh, that's interesting. So then, since you were a nonprofit, now you're a profit, did you find any benefits, especially with building out? Did you get rights and did you get permission to do stuff before that you don't get now? Or is it basically the same?
It's basically the same. The relationships that were created carried over to the for-profit organization. The not-for-profits and the for-profits have to navigate the same permissions, the same permits, the same easements. That process, albeit lengthy, is the same, is required, it's needed. Yeah. I think that answered your question. I didn't want to talk badly about, the time frame that it takes to get fiber to be put in the ground or in the air or anything like that. But there's a lot of engineering going on. It doesn't matter whether you're for-profit or not-for-profit.
Okay. And so, so you're doing enterprise class fiber and you're doing the backbone. the thing is, when I talked with Brad, it's like almost 2 years ago at this point. I swear when I did research on your company, oh, it's so frustrating. I thought you had a home division. There's like some weird ass, you could get something to the home, and then I tried to ask him, and then it got even more confusing, so I gave up. Do you have a home division?
So there is a separate entity. It's a whole new business and entity called Riverwave Broadband.
Okay, that, yeah.
Yeah. And so they're in our building, but they are a separate company. I work directly for ERC. And we have a staff that manages the Riverwave. And so Riverwave could be thought of as a WISP, even though we're
Yeah,
not wireless. They're not wireless. They only use fiber as well.
yeah.
But they do residential style deployments. We call it a customer access network.
Okay.
But they provide service, and we'll call it, the spokes. We are the hub, and they're the spokes in dense areas where we have our own talent and specialization to be able to reach out, not too far, but yeah, to reach out into residences, multi-dwelling homes, multi-family units, dense housing structures, mobile home parks, and stuff like that.
Okay. So is your CEO their CEO?
No, no, they're a 100% separate entity. We just happen to share a facility.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's why it gets confusing then. Okay, so then with
Yeah.
you guys, yeah.
Yep.
So like how many clients do you have? So okay, so we're dealing with enterprise fiber in Westernish, North Carolina. Like how many clients does that look like?
I think about 600 customers.
600, that's it.
Yeah. That 600 businesses using our fiber.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
so like what's the price point? Like how much are they paying for you guys?
It all depends, right? So it varies. The way we deploy, it's a non-standard model, but for a small fiber ISP, I think it's fairly reasonable. We are only 100% dedicated. So Eli, if you said to me, "Hey Steve, I need fiber for my business at my office in downtown Asheville," I would get a fiber survey completed, which would say, this is what it's going to cost for me to run fiber from my closest point of presence to your facility. I
Okay.
take that cost, I add 20-25% to cover staff, maintenance, actual internet service, et cetera. And then I divide that across the term. And so you say, I want it for 36 months, I want it for 60 months, and that's our price. And so that can sometimes, if it's a tiny build, we can provide you enterprise quality dedicated internet service for 100 megs for $400 a month. And if you are even closer, it can be less than that. And so that's why I say it varies. And so we have businesses that call up and like, hey, listen, I have to have 10 gigs of service. It has to be protected and it's a mile away. Fiber in the ground is roughly $22 a foot. Fiber in the air is roughly $12 a foot. And so I stink at math, but over 5,000 feet across a mile, gets you to whatever that number is. If it's aerial, it's somewhere around $55,000 to $60,000. And if it's underground, you're hitting $100,000. And so it doesn't matter how long you put it, extend that term out. It gets costly.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, I mean, is it like a normal point to point run where there's no additional value? So let's say, your location or your build outs here, and then the business is here, and then you have another business here. Can you run to here and then from here to the next guy, or do you have to do a home run for each person essentially?
Yeah, we prefer the home run. There is an opportunity for us to extend the point, and if we are going to do something like that, we would do that on a temporary basis. Here's what we don't want to rely on, right? We got business A sits here in the middle. This over here, that's our pop. My head is business A. We run a line here. This business, my head, locks its doors at 6 p.m. and we have access to it. But if a business all the way over here wants service, and we have to wait for access to that facility that we've deployed here, then it could negatively impact our ability to respond downstream. So we always prefer to run a dedicated fiber. Now, the only way we would do an interim like this is, let's say we ran, 18 strands from our POP into the central location, and we could extend one of those 18 strands directly across. That's still 100% dedicated fiber, even though it shares an appliance in the middle.
And then, so how long does that take? So if I had a warehouse and I wanted fiber run, let's say a quarter of a mile, let's make it a little shorter. Like from when I said, "Hey, I've got to check," to when that fiber is actually lit up, how long, ish does that take?
All right. So you said a quarter of a mile.
Just yeah.
So if we go underground, we can get it done in a 30-day window.
Okay.
We go underground and we don't have to block any roads and get any easements or any pole permits. We're fast. We get you on the schedule and we get you delivered.
Okay.
If we have to go aerial, then there are DOT encroachments that we have to navigate. That's a 45-day cycle. And it's not a 45-day window, it's a 45-day cycle. And if something changes, you start your 45-day cycle over again. Then you also reach out to whomever owns the poles. And typically in our area, it's Duke Energy that owns the poles. That could be a 90-day window where you submit an application called the pole permit. You can have like 8 or 16 poles maximum per permit. And so across a quarter-mile stretch, it's likely 3 pole permits that we're going to have to submit. All 3 pole permits have to be approved. The encroachment has to be approved. And when that's all done, then we can put you on the schedule. So yeah, it can, something easy. If it's attached, we can, tackle it in 24 hours. If it's underground, 30 days. If it's aerial, 3 to 6 months. If it's longer than a quarter mile or a half mile, it could take 6 to 9 months.
Wow.
God forbid it has to cross a railroad or go near an airport, go over a creek, over a bridge, under a bridge, near a troll. I mean, there is so many things that can make this impact. And people are like, why does it take so long?
Yeah.
If you think so, a spool of fiber is pretty darn heavy. Now, when it's supported on the ground, it doesn't do a lot. But you put that thing in the air and you're getting 800 to 1,000 pounds of pressure on a ring that's spread over 40 feet or 100 feet, it creates physics that I'm not smart enough to understand. Suffice it to say, we're willing to pay for an engineering company to validate that across every individual pole that we have to touch, across the quarter mile, across the 3 permits. So yeah, unfortunately, it takes some time.
So how often does that get rejected?
More times than we'd like, that's for certain. Um, Man, very, very few just get like flat stamped rejected. Some will come back and say, hey, this is, we need to do something else in this one location or across this permit. And which does unfortunately, cause us to have to go back and re-engineer and come up with another solution, and they respond. But like, flat out rejected or big changes, less than 1% of the time. It just doesn't happen. Everybody wants fiber. Everybody wants better connectivity. The more fiber that we can deploy everywhere, the cheaper the costs get for everyone. And so no one's really opposed to us expanding networks. And it's not just us, right? Spectrum, AT&T, Optimum, all these organizations are doing the same thing. But it is typically one company that has to review everybody's applications. And so we're not the only person doing it. Yeah.
So then, is there any, how do I put this, nefarious competition? So I know when they were doing the fiber build outs in Baltimore, one of the problems I heard from the ISPs is when one ISP would go in, they'd make sure their shit worked, but oops, my knife slipped, and hey, that's somebody else's thing. I can't touch. Like, does that happen out here?
I would be lying if I said it didn't happen.
Okay.
Are they nefarious? No.
Okay.
Accidents happen, right? Here's the thing, too. The other providers hire contractors to come in and do this work.
Okay.
When contractors are paid by the hour, they don't give they don't care necessarily about the negative impact of their work around them and to the people around them. They're just there to do their job, and they act that way. They get paid that way.
Yeah.
Our engineers aren't that way. Our engineers, live and work and eat in the same restaurants, and they shop in the same stores, and they see all of our customers and our colleagues all of the time. We don't break other people's stuff because we don't want them breaking our stuff. Now, Spectrum doesn't go out and break our stuff either, nor does AT&T, nor does Contact. None of them do that. Their contractors have accidents.
Okay.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen all that often. It really, really, really doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know when I was in Baltimore, there was something where they had to like redo the permitting process because literally it was happening so much that even the government had to be like, okay, this isn't working.
I can share
Yeah.
because it was before I worked at ERC, that there was a very rowdy person going around downtown with a shotgun blasting aerial cans, fiber aerial cans. Eventually, they caught this person, but more times than not, any sort of disruption is from a vehicle accident or a backhoe. It doesn't happen because Spectrum, thinks that our fiber is better and they want to win customers over from us.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. When there is damage, can you just go out and fix it, or is there a permitting process to fix damage too?
Yeah, you can just go out and fix it. Yeah. Oh yeah, and so you have a small you have a small. There's no such thing as a small thing. It's great for me in business development. Selling is the hard part. Engineering is the easy part. So anything they do is easy and it's just small. But yeah, a car may hit a pole and knock a pole down, and it can disrupt service. Typically, we can have a truck in place within 2 hours and have the actual service restored because it can be complicated, but it can also be quite simple. If it's a massive pole and a massive fiber line, like we've got strands of fiber, there are 144 strands of fiber, and it takes 15 minutes to splice a fiber. If somebody cuts something like that, you just got to multiply it by minutes. You understand that someone's going to be there all day doing splicing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. And so the final thing for ERC then, like what size is the business, if you can say? Are you like $10 million a year, $1 billion a year? Like how much is your like ARR? Like what are you looking at?
We're more than 10,
Or more than 10. Okay.
less than a billion.
Less than, less than a billion. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Eli, when we hit that $1 billion mark, our other fund initiatives that we do on the education side will be 100% funded by ERC. There won't be a Meet the Geeks moniker. You and I will be traveling the world, educating as many people as we can, wherever we can, however we can on the ERC dime.
Fair enough. You're not making it easier for Brad. Now I want to give Brad more crap to actually expand you guys some more. I'd be like, Brad, I need you to fund my projects. You need to grow more. Okay, so you're director of business development and director of community relations. So I didn't know about that last one, so we'll go to the first one first.
Cool.
So you're director of business development. So titles are titles. What does that actually mean? Do you have people under you? Is that just
All
whatever?
right. All right. So I'm a senior position because of my age and my experience. I
Oh,
don't have anybody that directly reports to me, but I absolutely consult and work with other people who take guidance and instruction from me. Nobody, I am not responsible for managing anybody directly, but if there is something that I can contribute to from a leadership or managerial point, people just will listen. We have a great organization. And it's the same way with me, right? If we as a company need to get something done, and one of our engineers needs an extra pair of hands, and I listen in, you know, pull up my weight belt or whatever I need to do and do it. But yeah, director of business development is just a fancy way of saying expand service,
yeah.
right? Sales, that is the absolute role in the long run. But it's not making new sales all the time. It is also involves, continuing relationship development with existing and future customers or people that can actually benefit and develop our business.
Good.
So many people think, oh, it's just sales. It is far from just sales, right?
Okay.
You don't get to business development directly. You go through sales.
Hmm.
And if you want to be really, really good at it, you need to have gone through whatever service or product delivery or development process first. You start that technical learning curve and you understand the service or the product from soup to nuts. And then you have to translate that value to a potential customer and convince them that their value then becomes greater when they invest in your value. And then that is, that's these all these little pyramids stacking on to each other. And then when you can do that in a large scale community or region, you're really starting to get into business development. And so it encompasses aspects of marketing, technical, literal sales, relationship development, networking, grant writing. It's a lot of things.
Oh, God, fair enough then. So, does that title help you? So, back when I was in the corporate world, the last company I worked for was interesting because I was doing my research before I got hired, and they had, fuck me, they had so many vice presidents. They just had, I didn't, and again, I was like in my 20s. So, I'm like, what the hell is with this? And so, I go to my boss that hired me, and I was like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out why do we have 50 vice presidents? And he said, well, they were all vice presidents of sales because basically what he said is they had all been like director or senior salespeople, but nobody wanted to deal with a senior salesperson. They all wanted to deal with vice presidents. So they just went through and retitled everybody vice president, and now we had 50 vice presidents of sales, and that made things good. Is your title like when you're running around Western North Carolina, if you had a different title, do you think that would affect how people interacted with you? If you were just a senior sales guy, would they still take your, in all seriousness, would they still take your call?
Uh, yes, because I don't give a shit what my title is, right?
Okay.
I wanted to get to a point where my title identified a segment of the role that I needed to fill, right? Business development, community relations, community development. I didn't care if it said director. I didn't care if it said dude. I didn't care if it said jackass, right? That completely and utterly irrelevant. I am not out marketing my wares or my business's wares off of the title that I have in LinkedIn or whatever on my business card. I go out as me representing the business and our capabilities, and people typically learn about us from some other methodology. Or as I have a conversation with them, I'm quick to be able to share the value that we bring to a community and to a business or to an entity. And people recognize and understand that. It doesn't matter what my title is. The only way, and this is a totally, totally negative thing. I would love to just get rid of titles at all. I would like just my business card to just say, dude, and I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Um, on LinkedIn or whatever social media platform you are in, people market you based on your title, which is horrible. That's an absolutely disgusting thing. It's a disgusting process. I get tons of emails and outreach and phone calls. Oh, yeah, you're the director of business development. You would be good at this, or I should talk to you because of this. And I'm like, that's BS. None of that's real. You found me because you did a title search and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. If anything, it's more negative than positive, but
Interesting. So then, okay, so you're talking about sales, marketing, like non-profit. So I don't know, keep it down to like five, I guess. Like what are your big tasks then, or what are your when you're looking at business development, what are like the five core or less business development things you do?
drive interest in fiber internet services,
All right.
make people aware of our business and our value,
Yeah.
If I'm good at those first two, there's a whole process for actually selling and collecting money.
Yeah.
Be the face in of the organization in the community.
Okay.
Right. I'm always out. I'm hardly at my office. I'm always going to some net events and whatnot. And this is my favorite one. This one sort of sums everything up in a slightly entertaining way. Reward customers or prospects for engaging with ERC.
Hmm.
And what that means is I am paid to take customers and prospects to lunch, coffee, and beer, which my company pays for. That's the best. Right? And if I'm good at those first things, those first few things, then I can do that last thing a whole lot. And I love doing that last thing a whole lot.
Oh yes, I don't think anybody on this call be like, really, he likes free beer. I'm surprised. It's shocking to me.
What?
What? Okay, so those were very good like buzzwords. So like when you're talking about like getting people though,
Yep.
like again, what does that actually look like? Are you putting TV ads out there? Are you doing AdWords? Are you showing up with beer? I don't know.
Yeah. So, I might identify a business or meet a business or get introduced to a business that doesn't use ERC broadband.
Yeah.
And then I will talk to them. I will ask for a meeting, ask them out for a coffee, take them out to lunch, meet them at a networking event. Very specifically, it's very spearfish, right? We have 1,500, call it easy number, miles of internet across Western North Carolina. I
Yeah.
can point at every single business because I can just troll walk my fiber and say, this business is close by, I can serve them. This business is close by, I can serve them. And so I will walk up, I'll knock on the door, I'll find them on LinkedIn, I'll meet them at some sort of social event somewhere, and I'll just engage them. Hey, I'm Steve with ERC Broadband. Love to talk to you about our fiber internet services and what you're doing with your internet and your networking.
Mm, okay.
Yep, and that just starts it off. And then, oftentimes, I was like, all right, cool. How about over a cup of coffee or a beer? Oh, okay, do it over beer. Absolutely, I'll do it over beer.
There
If
you
they're
go.
high enough up the echelon, I invite them into the office. I break out the bourbon or the whiskey, and we tackle it that way. And then the one last aspect of that is, my whole purpose is not actually to sell that customer.
Yeah.
It's to find out and introduce them up to us or about us.
Hmm.
And if I know and understand their need, I can align it with a solution that solves a problem for them. That doesn't have to be my service. I become an advocate for that organization and a trusted partner if I align them with the best solution, and they will come back to me when they need something else.
Hmm.
That is great business development. If your whole focus is on, I just need to make ERC $1 million more every single year, you're not going to be there for very long because you might start a service and they've got to complete that service and they could get upset. Who knows how you sell the service? Nobody wants to be sold. People want to be consulted and helped buy. So yeah, that's how I navigate that first piece, and that wraps into the second and third piece too.
That's fair enough. So coffee and beer isn't too expensive. Dinner is. So when people are willing to go out with you for these, is this like a North Carolina people are nice, or if you were in Chicago, could you act? Because I tell my students about informational interviews. And it's always hard to tell people how to do it when they've never done it. Like, are people up for this? Like, is this a hard sell just to get them to come out for a cup of coffee or something? Or
No, I'd say it's 50-50.
yeah.
There are just some people who aren't interested. Like I might reach out to somebody and be like, "Hey, Eli, I read something about you the other day because I'm social stalking you on LinkedIn, and you mentioned something about data analytics, and I got a buddy who's in data analytics. He might be able to help you solve your problem. How about I coordinate a beer, and the three of us will get together and we'll just talk." And people are like, "Ooh, that's great. I help them solve your problem." Oh, cool, Steve. What is it that you do? Oh, I do fiber internet services and I work for this organization called Meet the Geeks and we solve technical problems. Oh, that's cool. And then what else? Right. And then there'll be lots of times I'll reach out and be like, hey, look, I saw that you were in this community that had a Spectrum outage. We don't have outages because we're way better than Spectrum. You want to have a cup of coffee and talk about your needs? And then I got a response back. No. That's cool. I'm there off the list. And I move on to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, that's decent. Have you like, is there any, because again, I have like a lot of 18-year-olds. It's so weird, like, because I'm getting close to 50. And so, like, you remember being 18, but I mean, you sort of vaguely remember being 18. You forget being nervous. Like, did you ever have a problem with rejection? Like, because well, that's the whole thing, right? You got to have 99 no's to get to one yes. And so it's just a numbers game with sales or any of this. Did you ever have that problem? Or you're like, I don't give a fuck, whatever. No, next.
Yeah. So in the sales world, I'll just call it the whole sales world, right? When your role and your responsibility is that outreach and whatnot, you absolutely have to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Anytime you're communicating with a customer or a prospect, you never know what it's going to be like on that other side of the phone or the other side of the table or the other side of the email. You always have to have thick skin. But what you can't do is you can't take it personally and you can't make assumptions about what they talk about, right? And so there is a whole there's a series of psychotherapeutic things that you can learn and you can do before you're good at it. But for me, entry level sales is all about the numbers, right? I need to make 100 calls in order to get to one yes.
Yeah.
I'm not in that position. Our business doesn't need to be in that position, right? This for us, this is not a massive volume kind of opportunity. And so I really think, and I'm lucky, I'm fortunate to be working for an organization like this. There are business development roles and there are sales roles that it's all just numbers and it's all just calculated and you just need to follow through with it and you can prosper. But I have moved past that into a career that is different from that, into an organization that doesn't need that. So I'm very, very fortunate and very grateful to be able to work where I work, how I work.
Fair enough. So then, are you measured on any metric? Are you guys just so successful you can do what you want to do? Or is there some kind of like magical, like, it looks like he's doing okay? Or like what happens if you did just get bored and stop work? Like, would anybody notice? Do you have metrics or
Not for a day, nobody would notice.
for that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is fun too. We use Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's a book I got right here called Traction. And hold on, I'll get the guy's name. Gino Wickman, that's his name. Yep, got the book sitting right here, collecting dust. And he has this methodology, or he shares this methodology where you basically identify where you want to go, what you want to do with your business, who's in your business. You identify the roles and responsibilities that those people need to tackle. You identify your goals for 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. And then you set up, quarterly reviews and metrics and whatnot. And so I am more an operational and technical person than I am a sales person. I've got 40 years of technical experience before anything else. And so I got into operations, I got into metrics, I got into data long, long, long before I was actually responsible for generating sales figures and revenue. And so this whole system is just, I don't know, it's a concise way of rolling out very, very basic business management stuff. And so we wanted to do that before I came on board. And as I was communicating with Brad, and I was like, I've done this 3 times or twice before. This will be my 3rd time actually navigating this. But I used to do this in the development world. So I'd be happy to help us do that. So me as the salesperson, I helped bring more metrics to what it is that we achieve. And so our metrics are more driven around growth and service, not necessarily around revenue expansion. So, right, we recognize the more miles that we can put into the ground, the more people and the more businesses that we can serve. As a result of some of the things I do, we get to add to that. And so we measure that expansion capacity. We measure it as part revenue, as part service. So no, I can't just sit off and do absolutely nothing. You know, I set my own goals, my own objectives for sales and outreach and community development.
Yeah. Huh. So with that, is there any pushback from the upper management? So like you feel like you know what you need to do. Sometimes, your CEO or somebody else, like how do you guys come to terms with what you should be doing in a day or in a month?
That's a really, really good question too. We don't sort of, I got to where I am, or I am where I am because I am a product of my work product, so to speak. So, in the technical world and in the business development world in Asheville, people know who I am. And I have a really good, successful track record to this date.
Yeah.
I am driven by the community growth. And so the work that I do for the business really satisfies my real passion in community development. So I want to see the community expand, and this is just a great way for me to be able to achieve that. And so, and Brad recognizing that and wanting that same sort of that same ideal, more community, and recognizing that more community development truly leads to more business development, especially for us. He brought me in to tackle both of those positions, both those opportunities. And so, we had one person internally that would do that, one day a week. I do it 5 to 6 days a week.
Ah, fair enough. And so with what you're doing then, do you have more or less like an allocated budget, or how do you guys figure out what your department or use spend should be in a quarter or a year or whatever?
So we don't have a budget per se for my direct activities.
Okay.
I know that I should spend up to 10% of the revenue I create in a month to reward my customer base,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
And so if I'm bringing in, and I'll average between $2,500 and $3,000 in new sales, which is roughly 3 to 5 new customers every month, I'm spending a minimum of $250 to $300 every single month on beers, bourbons, and whatnot. And sometimes that reward or the need for reward is greater than what I have accomplished on my business side. And I will absorb those costs on my personal side because I recognize that one, I needed to do more to serve the community. And this is my contribution to that aspect. It is not solely on the back of ERC. They do not need to be responsible for all those pieces, like my bourbon social, right? That is 100% me.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody knows I am part of ERC, but not once have I asked ERC to buy the bourbon that I provide to the technology leaders in Western North Carolina.
So, okay, so that is both touching and horrifying at the same time because you're an old timer, you know what the hell your boundaries are, so whatever. My concern is like when the 18 and 20-year-olds hear this, they're like, "Oh, okay, so the company will pay for some of the marketing and then I'm supposed to pay for some of the marketing." Like how did you figure out where that line should be? Again, the Bourbon Social, I understand, been one of those. But like with some of this other stuff, how do you know when you're not being taken advantage of? Or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, I guess you reach your limits.
Right.
Um, and you should be really, really good at understanding where your limits are, right? You need to it's also spoken of as boundaries, right? And so if I am pushed outside a real boundary of mine, I absolutely have an internal response. But when my work serves my passion, it's along that lines of, right, if you love your work, you never work a day in your life. So when those are all aligned, I don't care. It really, I don't even think twice about it. And I love what I do. Now, advice for the youth coming up. I have 35 years of professional experience. You don't start day one at where I am. You must work through this stair step or ladder or however you want to think about it. Um, you are not a subject matter expert from day one, and people won't trust you from day one. And you need to add, put the feather in the cap or whatever it is. You need to build that reputation over time through service. And so you can't just assume because you have the dumbest degree in cybersecurity that you are a valued member of any organization. I don't care if you came from Harvard, I'm not going to hire you. Right? You need to demonstrate your value to an organization. As you do more and more of that and you bring more and more value, you get more and more respect and more response, positive response from that organization. And guess what? If you don't, you're in the wrong company. So I think Eli and I have probably said this a lot, right? It's the right person in the right role in the right organization. When all three of those align, you'll work there until you're bored.
Fair enough. So, okay, so you're director of business development. So we've talked about that. Now you're director of community development. So what does that actually mean? Like, what is that job?
That's one I made up.
Fair enough. There you go.
So, you know, I think of it as a PR person for our organization. I literally insert myself into conversations where I can bring value that are not directly related to the expansion of our existing services.
Okay.
Example, I run an organization called Meet the Geeks. I help run an organization called Meet the Geeks.
You run it. You run it.
And I have a fantastic board. And what we do is we build cohesive technology community by doing lots of things. We originally started with a matchmaker service. We got to know the businesses that were hiring technologists. We got to know the technologists, and we put them together. And so it's a job placement. It's a free staffing organization. Technologists tend to be a little bit introverted. We provided a fun and comfortable environment with only technologists, and people came out in mass and had a great time. We recognized that there weren't enough technologists to satisfy all of the business needs in our community. We have, I can't remember the exact number. I was going to say thousands. We have a lot of open technology roles in our community. We don't have enough technologists to fill them. So what we decided, we as Meet the Geeks, part of my community development, was through ERC and Meet the Geeks, I inserted myself into the school systems offering technical advice to the students, to the curriculum advisors, to the administration or whatever. And then I would bring in members from Meet the Geeks, members from the organization, and we just start helping out to introduce technology as a viable career in the K through 12 and beyond space. And so that's community service, that's community development, right? And so they see me, they hear about ERC, they hear about Meet the Geeks, they get a benefit, they get a value. And they always try to reciprocate at some point in time. And it's not always service, right? It's not always, oh, wow, Steve, you were so great. That's so awesome. Well, thank you. And what Meet the Geeks did, here's our contract for fiber. Sometimes it's me reaching out to the city and saying, hey, I need a room. Can you guys help me with, a room for a meeting? Because I want to bring in 100 people. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. Here it is. And so that happens a lot across a fair, expansive platform.
That's interesting. Like how open are people to you when you ask for things like, or an office or something like that to use?
I haven't gotten a no yet. And so, if here's a really good example. So as Meet the Geeks and working with our local Council of Governments, a COG, our Council of Governments is the land of sky. Yeah. We got access to a free technology training platform, not as good as you, but it was free, learn at their own pace, metrics learning. And so what Meet the Geeks wanted to do was we wanted to host on one Friday a month or 2 Fridays a month, a computer lab where we would bring in a mentor And we could curate content and say, hey, if you're really interested in getting into technology based on where you are and where you want to be, these are the classes online that you can take. And by the way, if you have questions, here is our Discord. You can ask questions or come into these live labs. And so I wanted to find labs that were on our bus lines, that were downtown, and anywhere. And so, over my years of service, I reached out to AB Tech, I reached out to Goodwill, I reached out to the city, I reached out to the Land of Sky, all asking them for computers, a room, access to a room with computers. All four said yes.
Oh, okay.
I had no problem getting the space or getting the tools. The
Yeah.
problem we have now is getting the people interested, and you know that.
Yeah. I mean, what do you find about that? I guess we can kind of go with that with Asheville. Like, because I think that's one of the weird things. Like when I had my classroom for Silicon Dojo, I had so many technology professionals and business people, and they were more than happy to teach, like Node and AI and all kinds of stuff. And I literally had to tell people to stop because my problem was actually getting asses in seats. I was like, dude, as soon as I can get 20 asses in seats, I'll be more than happy to, but like that's the help I need. How do you find that? And because we hear so much about we need more people in technology, and we hear that the next generation wants to be in technology, but from the money I've put on the table, that intersection doesn't seem to be happening the way people think it does.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the problem here in Western North Carolina is going to be generational in that regard.
Okay.
So I don't know how much y'all want to know about this, but North Carolina is the second worst state for investment in education.
Wow. Okay.
Back in the early 2000s, we were one of the best, and
Hmm.
now we're one of the worst.
Damn.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And so we have this education investment path that hit, oh, look, it follows my little line here. That's just been dwindling and dwindling. As a result of that, our future generations are much less inclined to improve themselves. And that is a direct result of poor education, right?
Hmm.
And it's multi-generational now. It's 20 years. So parents at this point in time have been disinterested at the very basic educational level in the K through 12 space.
Hmm.
And so you get what you pay for. And we have continued to reduce and reduce and reduce our investment in education. And we now have kids, most of our population, less, it's more than 70% of our population don't go to college and graduate with any semblance of a degree or certificate.
Really that high?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that, I mean, that truly, truly demonstrates a lack of interest or curiosity in learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It promotes complacency.
Yeah.
Complacency is not good for technology. It's not good for anything. There's no really, really good job except maybe press the button to launch a nuke. Maybe I don't want to do that. I'm just not going to touch that. That's best case use case I can imagine.
Uh,
But yeah, that's what our community unfortunately has evolved into or devolved into. And so what I want to do is I want to change that. I want to increase the investment in education. I want to teach curiosity. I want to teach productivity. I want to teach community involvement and community improvement along lines of math, science, and English. It's math, science, English, community development, or community contribution, or service, or whatever you want to, whatever it wants to be. And then, when you're elevated from the K space with that through all of your educational opportunities, you will be more receptive. And so it's not something we can fix in a year or two or three, but something that we could impact in 10 or 12 or 25 years.
hmm. But do you think that there's because I mean it is interesting with people what do they call it? Anyways, words.
Cool.
It's funny. I sit here talking to a camera 3 hours a day and words escape me sometimes. But there's some like disempowerment or whatever where it's personal. But like one of the other issues that I saw here is again, it's interesting. I think we have a disagreement about this. Like you talk about all these tech jobs that are here. And yet, when I had my classroom, one of the reasons I shut it down, many reasons, but one of the reasons I had good students and there was not a damn thing I could do with them. I did reach out, I did talk with people, and basically at the end of the day, I told them to go to Charlotte. What should I do next? Go to Charlotte. And so Asheville always likes to look on the bright side again, they like to talk, but like the actual practical, are there help desk positions here? Are there racking positions here? Are there, I'll go through like, because you had that program. And one of the questions I had is at the end of it, what the fuck are you, what are you doing with these people? Because I don't see the jobs. I go out and talk with a lot of people and I don't see the jobs to put those butts into. Like, am I just blind somehow or
Man, I wish you were at our last Meet the Geeks.
I was
At the last one?
the one downtown.
Uh, Wait, you and I were, did you leave early when I got up and I was talking about Meet the Geeks and I had four different people in the audience raise their hand and say, thanks to Meet the Geeks, I got a job. Thanks to Meet the Geeks, I got a job.
Okay, well, I mean, that was like four people. I mean, that's good. I
Four
make money.
people in one room. And so, right, we're placing people. We were, I would say right now, it's a little bit of a slope, but on average, right, we're putting a butt in a seat in a job that pays decently for Asheville,
Yeah.
that pays better multiple times a month.
Are those new people or are those people that moved to the area and they're already mid-level or whatever?
No, no, there are people here, right? There are people in Asheville that we're helping out. And so you know, if you want to come to Asheville, this was my whole the whole reason why I got invested in Meet the Geeks is it took me 2.5 years, 15 plus years ago to get a good technology job in Asheville. And that's ridiculous. That's just stupid. Now, you know, we can do it in 15 and a half days.
Really?
We can. Our MSPs are hiring. Aeroflow is hiring. There are lots of good opportunities. Just recently, just saw a post right from our city. The city is hiring. Buncombe is starting to expand, and it's coming off of its hiring freeze, and it's going to be hiring. Hendersonville is really gung ho on doing some development. I just found just yesterday, 2 days ago, found out about as business I had no idea about 45 developers in Haywood County. And so
Really?
getting connected to them, because that's pretty good. 45 developers, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, fair enough. Maybe I've
There's
missed it.
opportunity. Can there be more? Yes,
Hmm. Yeah.
absolutely. There can be more. Do we have enough interest in the next generation of our workforce? Not yet. We're working on that. We're absolutely working on that. But if you get some good technical chops that's validated by Eli and I, we could both get you a job here in town.
So what are they? Because the other thing too, like since I moved here, price of everything have gone through the roof. So if you're getting slotted into a job, because that's the thing, $20 an hour 7 years ago, yeah, it was fine. $20 an hour, and now you're homeless. Like what wage are these new people getting slotted in at?
Yeah, so an entry level position, like the lowest entry level position is going to be around 45K a year.
Okay.
So $22 an hour.
Yeah, okay.
If you have really good skills that have been validated and maybe you're transitioning from one career to this career into technology, you can easily start in the 60s. In an entry level position, there are businesses that will absolutely hire for that. And so the businesses that I work for or with,
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this. They're hiring for attitude over aptitude, right? They recognize anybody can learn, but you got to have the right attitude in order to work with their group.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now, what were you laughing about?
Oh, I don't know. I laughed the whole thing. Anyways, fair enough. Okay.
One last thing, right? So you see my glasses, right? They're
Yep.
clear.
Well, we sort of see.
I've been in Asheville long enough. My optics are now rose colored. And so I don't have to wear rose colored glasses. My eyeballs are taking care of that for me.
Is okay. So you brought this up, so it becomes a fair topic when the guest brings it up. I try to keep my mouth shut until they do. Is that a good thing? Like one of the interesting things that I find about Asheville is, yeah, everybody has like rose-colored glasses on or rose-colored optics. And I'm sitting there looking at a junkie passed out on the lawn. And I'm being told, oh, see, that's a person that's found their own freedom and they're enjoying the sun. Like, I don't know, does the rose-coloredness get into
Was that me? Was that me lying out there? Oh man, whole separate problem. So I have recognized this, right? And the city and the county recognize that we have a homeless issue, we have a cost of living issue, we have a housing crisis. And I volunteer my time and the Meet the Geeks mentors times to create educational pathways. The problem related on the homelessness side is I'm learning because I just recently, I say recently, over the last 8 months, joined Asheville COC, the Coalition of Care or Continuation of Care. And their job, their mandate is to, help reduce and or resolve homelessness if at all possible. And so there is an entire mental well-being and well-care that is additive to all of that. And it doesn't help that the four hardest things to tackle in life are our four biggest problems, right? Housing, cost of living, affordable jobs, and childcare. And so, yeah, it is not, I may have rose-colored optics. That's just who I am, right? I am hopeful on everything across the board, undaunted from the tasks, so to speak. But we don't live in a community, and I'm sorry for our government, that supports our citizens in that capacity, in that way, shape, or form. And I fully believe that that's what our government needs to do. There are so many things that they're doing, and they're saying we need to do this as a service, we need to do this as a service, but the greatest disservice is not helping those in dire need. And they're continuing to support and tackle initiatives that make the first four things even harder to achieve. And so, yeah, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. We're doing what we can to improve it. But the talking heads at the top of it all need to change their perspective and say, we are a government that serves our citizens and not the tourists who come, spend a little money, and then leave.
Yeah. Fair enough. Oh,
Yeah. Sorry, man. You opened the door. I went on my political diatribe.
I want to. Well, the thing that I was thinking more of is somebody I know, I don't know who it is, basically said, was it in Asheville, you can't throw a yoga instructor without hitting a life coach? Somebody, I don't know who said that. More my question is like when Helene hit, the interesting thing is so I talk with a lot of people and I know people that have tried to build housing in Asheville. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And they'll sit down with a beer and they will explain the problems. They'll explain the practical issues. And that's the concern is like I see so much of this. We need to reimagine our community and not again not building houses, not getting people educated, not it's like everything is in fantasy land, not in brass tacks. Is that just my cold-hearted opinion or
I think it's a well analyzed yet potentially cooler hearted opinion.
okay.
Right. Regardless of warm or cold, you're accurate.
Okay, fair enough. And how do you find, like, how do you get past that, or do you get past that as somebody that's been here for so long and that's actually trying to do something? I mean, because like so many conversations just kind of go around in a circle of not actually ever getting to the point where you grab a shovel and build something.
Yeah, man. So, and I think I went through a couple of iterations of this before I landed where I am now, at least in my philosophy, my thinking.
Okay.
And if, and I hate going back on it, if our teachers were paid to give a shit about every single kid that they had to take care of, and teaching and learning was not just math and science, but about surviving in life, then our future generations will be better equipped to take care of themselves. The people who are on the streets now or who have these problems now, they're pulling off of the top crust of service and cost, right? And so we create all of these social service layers to take care of people who we have not taught how to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
And if we change our focus, and our whole focus is not on this generation, it is not on the generation that is retiring, and it is not on billionaires making more and more money for themselves, but it is creating a caring, workable, viable future workforce, then we fix by reducing the amount and that volume of slicing stuff off the top. And so, you know, when I first started with the COC, I was like, yeah, I'll teach anybody. I can teach anybody how to do technology. Eli can teach anybody how to do technology. And, you know, I go out and I volunteer for a little bit of time to talk to somebody. I'm like, hey, you know, you could do technology. Would you be interested in technology? And you just get blank stare back, right? Now, I go into the K through 12 space. I'm talking to a bunch of eighth graders. I'm like, cool. Who here knows anything about getting a job in technology? Yeah, cybersecurity is mostly hype. Sorry. Thank you for distracting me because I was going on a political roll. Yeah, cybersecurity is total hype, man. Absolute hype. So I've been in technology for a very, very long time. I started programming when it was 1982.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yep. And I was responsible for managing my first databases for the government in 88.
Wait, how
And
old are
so
you? I didn't think you were that much older.
16,
Oh, how old are you now?
53.
Oh, okay. Wow. Huh, cool.
Yeah. I'm close to 50 like you. Yeah, but cybersecurity is total hype
Yeah.
because it didn't exist in the past. It didn't need to exist in the past because if you manage network, if you manage infrastructure, you manage software, or you manage people, you needed to know how to keep them all secure. And so nowadays, people are like, oh, I'm just going to teach you cybersecurity. And you don't know how any of the other four aspects work. It's freaking useless. Sorry. That's another diatribe. I appreciate whoever said that, asked that question. Thank you. Thank you for getting me back on track. There was a part two, but I don't know how to make this stuff work.
There you go. Was there a part two of that? Yeah. So anybody watching this on YouTube, there was a question from the Peanut Gallery. It said, "Is
Thank you.
cybersecurity really mostly hype? Has ERC ever been? Oh, are you allowed to say that? Have you ever been compromised or hacked?"
So it's not us, right? We are, I love this. This is Brad's favorite saying. We are big dumb pipes. We are
Yeah.
a point to a point. It's not us that gets hacked. It's
Yeah.
whoever is on the other ends. They're the ones responsible for securing that. So nobody cuts in the middle. It's just not possible. And so actually it technically is possible, but nobody's going to go through that because nobody knows what the hell they're tapping into. And most cybersecurity, if you're going to be blasting cast, you know, you're going to do that via social, phone, or email. You're not going to go out and go, oh, I know exactly that this fiber line connects to this person and this is the information that I can get. That's a persistent threat, and that cybersecurity doesn't even stop that.
Yeah.
So no, we have not been hacked. We haven't been a target. Yeah, we don't store any of that kind of information. You know, we have a system that's in the cloud. It doesn't have any relevant information in it either. So
I
yeah.
think that's an interesting question, though, with the cybersecurity. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. So, the NSA back in the day, in order to protect our people, they had to violate our rights. So, literally, so there were two Yahoo data centers, like they're across the street from each other, and they had some kind of replication strategy going on. So, NSA somehow went in, literally spliced so they just had a fiber line going from building to building. It wasn't an ISP, it was just building to building. They were able to splice that into a man-in-the-middle attack and basically be able just to gobble up everything going between those two data centers.
Yeah.
So there is actually an interesting question. So supposedly, I've informed, we're currently already in a war with China. Everybody knows we're already in a cyber war with China. That's why we watch Netflix all the time. Um, would you even, do you, and again, this is weird because I like you, um, would you even know if your fiber was compromised?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you get some sort of signal degradation. And, you know, I think about it, there are taps, right? There are ways that you can tap into equipment. And it would be way easier to compromise and tap into a box
Yeah.
than it would be to splice a fiber in a quick enough time frame that you can peel off information, still send information on, and pull off whatever you need. I believed that the government tapped in on the far ends and wasn't really necessarily doing a splice in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would just be way easier for them to just go plug in and just say, hey, all the information on this box now gets routed across this port too.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I have worked with the FBI when they've done that.
Fair enough.
But
So
yeah, I don't know enough to talk about that. And would we maybe, right? If we poll across all of our networks every 5 minutes, like is standard everywhere. And so if someone went in and got a single strand that they could splice, cut, fire, and connect to, sure, it's totally conceivable that that's doable.
does the government like does because again, that's the whole thing. Like we all hear about cybersecurity. More people need cybersecurity degrees. But the interesting part is like the government never really outreaches to anybody. Like we need all these cybersecurity professionals, but the FBI does like, do you have any communication with the government itself that says, hey, we found out this new attack. This is something you might look for, or yeah, not at all.
No, no, so I love cybersecurity. I should not be the person you all rely upon on technical information related to cybersecurity. But I do get daily newsletters that I have gone out and I have signed up to. We do get information from our vendors, our providers that are responsible for our firewalls and routers and whatnot, and they share vulnerabilities and updates. I get updates from Microsoft about their stuff. I love Dark Reading. That's a great newsletter everybody should be reading. Um, I try to follow up on things like that. I try to stay informed. But yeah, I've heard of, proactive outreach navigated. I'm not the person that they would reach out to. They're not so worried about the business and communications developer or director over at ERC Broadband in Western North Carolina.
All right, fair enough. So, okay, so going back to like the customers and the clients and all that, do you like how do you track your workflow for like initial contact with somebody and then trying to bring them into actually being a sale and all of that? Do you just use Salesforce at this point, or what kind of software do you use?
Yeah, yeah, we use Salesforce. And it's completely and utterly useful. You can build out a process if you wanted, and you can make your staff follow your sales process and whatnot. I have my own process that is just that. So, I will do my outreach or I will receive contact. I'll make sure that I add that person into Salesforce and I reach back out to them. There are all sorts of different sales strategies or business development strategies out there. Not any one of them is any real better than the other one. The one that is the best is the one that works for you, and that brings you success. And so I highly recommend you try them all. I highly recommend you customize them all. But being diligent, if I get a call or if I get an email, I add it to the system and then I will immediately respond as best I can. And if I need to respond to them again, I give myself a task and I set myself a time frame and I say respond again. And so, it is kind of funny because we do provide big dumb pipes. The sales process on internet is much simpler than my last two business development roles as managed service provider and as a data center provider. And those opportunities take a lot more strategy on the conversation side than it does to satisfy somebody's internet needs or network needs.
Yeah. I guess it's probably a lot simpler. I need a gig. You got a
It,
gig?
right, right. I need internet. I need a connection between these two places, or I need a connection between these 8 places or these 18 places. It's still, it's fiber? Sure. Is it direct connection or are you traversing a wave? Are you going to shape the traffic or am I going to shape the traffic? It's about 5 questions and you're done.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so then you started off in the technology world. So you were managing databases at 16, all of that kind of stuff. So then how did you get to Biz Dev? How and why did you get to Biz Dev?
Yeah. Well, so as you all can tell, I am talkative.
Yeah.
I like understanding technologies. I'm very curious how they work, and I'm pretty good at getting a cursory understanding of them, and very quickly understanding and being able to translate the value of technology specifically for a business. And so my curiosity allows me to understand or want to learn people's operations and process and what's really, really important to them. And then I can align a technical need that augments or creates a whole nother pathway depending on what's needed. for that, and then translating that in lay speak to any person. And so I can talk the tech side and I can talk the non-tech side. And so over lots and lots of technical development projects um, from age 16 to age 35, maybe even 40, progressively more technical involvement, plus management, plus having to explain that, which really truly translates to sales. And so in 2010, I moved to Asheville to manage a global email marketing provider. And so I was the product manager, QA, QC, general manager, whatever, for this company. And my facility was sitting at the Medion data center. And in the data center, the folks were like, hey, we need more outreach. We need more this. We need more that. And I was like, well, you guys aren't doing any outreach. And there are so many businesses that you could get connected to. And they were basically like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Why don't you come and do that for us? And I'm like, in what capacity? And they're like, as a general manager. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, it's 70% management and it's 30% sales. In reality, it was 70% sales and 30% management. But I knew that there was a sales capacity and I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just, you get good at consulting and advising and analysis long and long enough that someone's going to ask you to sell it.
Fair enough. Do you feel like you left behind being a real technology professional? Because I think that's the interesting thing. Like as you get older, like the kids are like, "You're not a real technology professional anymore." And you're like, "I'm tired." Like, are you still a technology professional?
It's funny. Um, I get asked now to review code to find problems and bugs, and I can do it in any language.
Yeah.
And so I have gone through in my 43 years of technical experience, more code lines of writing code than most people have. And so I've made more mistakes than most people have. I recognize those mistakes and I am very easy and good at finding those mistakes. And so, yeah. No, I try to stay relevant. I don't play nearly enough in technology as I like to, but I read, I learn, I do everything I can to stay as connected as possible. Like recently, but within the last 3 years, I got an AZ 900 certification because I wanted to know more about Azure.
Okay. Let's see. We got a question from the gallery. Could you please
We got a
talk?
couple
Okay.
questions.
Well, no, we got a my kids. We just had a comment there.
Oh, okay.
Could you please talk more about the jump from the technical side to the management side?
Oh, yeah. Man, that happened naturally. And it's funny because when I did it, they didn't have such things as agile management, and there weren't all these fancy new terms to do the same shit we'd been doing for the last 20 years. Yeah, the greatest thing about education or about technology is you can always learn. The worst thing about it is marketing schmucks continue to make up new terms for the same shit we've been doing for decades. Because that's what they get paid to do. When it's funny, I don't like the concept of people being taught how to manage things, but they don't know how to do the things that they manage. They are not nearly as efficient. It's like trying to stick a round peg in a square hole. If you know every aspect of what you're trying to accomplish and you're good at communicating and dealing with people, you can be good at managing things, right? If you develop thicker skin, you can also be good at managing things. And so the organization that I work for now fully believes in that. Right? We don't hire a manager, we hire an engineer. And as an engineer develops in their skills and they develop in their capacities, and they develop the ability to educate other people in those same skills and capacities, they learn how to manage people and they learn how to manage people effectively. And so I am of the firm belief that you must do before you can manage.
Fair enough. Is there some kind of like, is there training? Because I know one of the complaints is you take a really good coder, you turn them into the manager, and then you get a really bad manager. Like, how do you figure out who will actually be a decent manager, or how do you know yourself?
Yeah.
Is it a learning curve? You just suck now and you'll get better, or you just suck. Like, how do you know?
Yeah. So the other thing I fully believe is that anybody can learn anything,
Okay.
right? And so there are people that, oh, you're our best developer, you know the most, you need to manage. Nope, it's not the way it is. That's not what management is, right? What is managing? It is controlling assets and resources to accomplish a goal. That's what management is. And just because you can write the best lines of code, it doesn't mean you can do any of those other pieces. And so as you develop your talent or you bring in talent, if you were going to bring in talent, specifically like, oh, I'm going to bring in this manager or this person who's going to manage this team, don't just bring them in as a manager, bring them in as an asset to provide resource to that team and then sculpt them into that management piece. And so I had a really cool experience when I was very young. And when I say I was young, I was in my early 20s. I was a hot shot coder for our company in Washington, D.C. called Excalibur. And we needed very specifically somebody to come in and manage assets and resources. And so they hired this guy to come in, and this guy, fantastic, nicest guy in the world. But what we only needed him to do was to actually do resource management, right? And so everybody came in and the whole preconception, this guy's going to manage me. This, this guy doesn't know anything about our project. This guy was perfect for that specific need of controlling our Microsoft project and making
Yeah.
sure. And right, and his fit was so good. He's like, hey, Steve, I don't know anything about this technical side. Can you bring me up to speed on this technical side of things? Can you be my liaison? Can you help me? Can you translate these needs and make sure that I understand these needs and not waste my time in doing it because you talk too much? And so, right, the organization finds the right fit, the right need, and that right thing. You cannot just take a programmer because they have experience and make them manage. You got to understand what it is that you need in that whole capacity. I am not a fan of PMP, but if you know that that's what's going to help make your organization and be successful, and you can align your direct organizational goals and needs to that, by all means, have some poor schmo go navigate through that. Because I have turned down PMPs looking for project management roles inside of development company because they don't know jack about development.
Fair enough. So then, like, so I mean, that's easy to say. Again, in our world, it's easy to say, hard to do sometimes. So, like, okay, so you find somebody that's going to bring resources to the team. Do you need a really good manager to then manage the process of turning that person into a manager? Is there some kind of training program? Did you go through, God knows what, Toastmasters or something? I don't know. Is there some kind of program to teach you how to do things?
I imagine there is. That is not the pathway that I took.
Okay, yeah.
I have, and it's where I got, like I said, I have my AZ 900. I got that 3 years ago. I have no formal training in technology whatsoever at all my entire life. I literally I started working on this database because I was the only person at age 16 who was dumb enough to say, sure, I can do that. No, I was the only one not afraid, right? I was like, it's just a computer. How bad can it be? And so no formal training at all in technology, none whatsoever. And, I ran a team. We had 6 developers. We had a global email marketing product that was as good as, if not better per unit of infrastructure, the MailChimp, iContact, Constant Contact, Bronto, and whatnot. How do I know this? Because our developers left to go work for those organizations because they could get paid better while we were working here for pennies in Asheville. And so, you develop and you learn through your experiences. Can you get formalized training? Yeah, sure. Is it of any value? It depends. You're going to spend the right amount of time to find the right organization to work with, or you're going to find an organization that you want to work with and develop the skills that you're going to actually improve and benefit that organization. So it's like a chicken and an egg kind of thing, right? And there's definitely, my way is not the only way. I know tons of people who've been sales trained through IBM and they wear their white press shirts and their ties and their jackets and they go about their business and they can be moderately successful and they're really annoying to hang out with because all they want to do is sell you something. that's not the population that I want to associate with.
I don't know. So do you have a degree?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a bachelor's in biology. I am a mycologist by study.
Oh my God. Wait, if
Maybe.
you're doing databases at 16, how the
I'm
heck?
a fun guy. I love it.
Oh God. Oh yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I am so sorry. Yeah.
What was that switch about? Like, why would you go from tech to biology and then out of that back to tech?
So tech was my summer job, and right what I was doing from 16 to when I graduated from college, just to give me a little bit of play money through school. And work for some really cool renewable energy consultants that work for Department of Energy or Department of Defense. And when I got into college, I wanted to swim with dolphins and whales. And I wanted to be a marine mammologist. And so I took a bunch of biology classes at the onset. I decided on mycology my senior year because it was the only degree I could graduate in and not have to go for a fifth year. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'm a mycologist. Let's call it quits after 4 years. And then right when I graduated college, I went back to work for the company that I've been spending summers for doing technology stuff. And so, yeah, it was the summer job that never stopped.
Fair enough. Have you run any problems with your career then, not having formal education in technology? I mean, has there ever been any kind of blip because of that?
There's in technology, you need the attitude, right? And it's not my attitude, right? You do not have to be hyper and annoying like me. Curious to learn and willing to try.
Fair enough. Okay, from the peanut gallery, Fred, what are the challenges and likelihood of matching a high-paying technical role to a sales role?
Can you elaborate on what you mean by like matching? Like, are you talking about making the transition from a high tech to a sales, or are you talking about like comparing like a more senior technical role, what's responsible, how much money you're going to make versus that sort of equivalent in sales?
Here, Fred, I'll unmute. Fred, what's your question? If he unmutes himself.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you taking my question here. Really, just looking at a comparison of, I would say salary is probably the number one thing. Sales has been something that's interested me for probably, I'd say 15 years or so. But I've always worked on the technical side, primarily in networking, and just wanted to get your input on this.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So from my experience, the most technical networking people are the highest paid people in technology. The salaries climb so nicely on the networking side because you're literally making sense out of magic. Now, on the sales side, the one benefit that we have is what I'll call the big bang for your buck opportunity, right? So I have a base salary and I make a commission on my sales. If I go out and I bring in a new town, I'm going to be able to get a 20 or a $30,000 commission based on what I can sell to them. And that is a nice one-time hit that doesn't augment my salary. And so at the higher level in sales, you have this interesting curve because when you're out and you're always making sales and you're bringing in new sales and you've got this, oh, look, that's the shape of my giant five head. You have the opportunity to make all of these commissions, and at some point in time, it'll teeter off for whatever reason. Because maybe you're not going to spend 60 hours a week working on the development. Maybe you're being asked to do management stuff. And then, maybe they'll boost your salary and they'll decrease your total commissions, or they'll put you in charge of a team and they have a shared commission structure like that. But yeah, you get these nice little spikes when you accomplish these pretty good sales objectives. And on the flip side, because I have been navigating that sales world for 10 plus years, I say 10 years, the first 10 years, I was still doing sales. I was doing new contract acquisition, expansion, and whatnot. But, we always met the new guy at the organization who replaced that young, fresh kid who navigated a tremendous deal and was able to retire for a couple of years because they hit $1 million win. Right. And so you hear about these things. I've never physically actually seen those people or met those people. I meet the people afterwards. Does that help at all?
Is that, oh yeah, don't unmute yourself until he's finished answering.
Yep. Sorry about it. Yeah, I had the family came in the house, so I wanted to warn them. But yeah, that definitely answers the question. I appreciate it.
Cool. And then on the technology side, if you love networking, it's a fantastic field. I don't know jack about networking. I can sell fiber internet, and I can tell you what a transport circuit is. But the demand for quality network engineers is phenomenal. I know a bunch of network engineers in Asheville, in our surrounding area. Now, mind you, this is tempered. I don't know what other folks make that make $150,000 to $250,000 a year because of how they can architect and design a network. To me, that's a fantastic salary.
Yeah, it's just comparing that salary to going into a sales role is, it's if anybody would be concerned about taking a step backwards, right? And how long is it going to take to build that back up?
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting too, right? So I have a friend of mine who is navigating right now a transition from network director to sales engineer networking. And it is not a step backwards. He's not going to get the big wins and the big commissions. He gets a piece of it, but he has a lot less stress, and he's no longer responsible for 100% uptime on that network. And he works, directly with the salespeople. So if you're highly technical and you don't want to, make the full plunge, sales engineers are a brilliant, brilliant opportunity.
Okay. Yep. Good point.
Cool. And then lastly, somebody else mentioned cybersecurity. It's just an odd fact that most people in the world think network engineers are all cybersecurity people, or at least can transition into that role. And so you could take advantage of some of this marketing hoopla around cybersecurity and, become a cybersecurity analyst for a network, and not lose space in your salary.
Cool, cool. All right, let's see here. And we've got Jock. And where is Jock at? Jock has a two-part question. What's going on, Jock?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. So, one is a question, and one is more of like maybe a solicitation in a sense, but it's still a question. So the first part is when ERC first started, you started as a nonprofit and you noticed a need in your community and was able to utilize a technology that was still kind of new at the time to be able to take advantage of it. And that was early 2000, but you still needed support from the government to do that. With today's landscape, do you feel like that same strategy would work in into it like in like a small market? Because you're like in West Virginia, I'm sorry, like Asheville. So because you were the small market, do you feel it worked then as opposed to now, or do you feel that it only worked because you're in a small market? You taking a technology that was brand new, being a nonprofit, and getting government, backing on that. That's the first part. Second part is with the situation you said with the homelessness. Do you feel that because taking a new technology to address those issues, would you feel that as a startup company, if you saw that there's a need to, that saw that there's an opportunity to take a new technology to address social needs, that you can probably get the backing of, you know, enterprises and the government to address those needs, and be able to start a business that way. So it's kind of like you see how it's two parts:
Yeah,
taking the
yeah.
technology to do a nonprofit early that was in the early 2000s, would that work now? But also in today's standard, taking a new technology to address social needs, but still can get backing from the government uh, or an enterprise to address that needs and make it into a business.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So let me add one quick clarification. And so ERC operated for the first 15-ish years as a nonprofit, right? So we were able to really truly leverage the interest of a senator and government's interest in broadband. And it's still, right, from 20 years ago till now, broadband is still like, I don't know, it's the play child. It's the golden child of conversation in a community. Everybody has to have broadband. Everybody has to have broadband, blah, blah, blah. Nobody actually knows, nobody's actually listening to what it takes to solve broadband problems. So I would say 15 years of leveraging, that government expansion was absolutely fantastic. In our problem in this day and age, I would say that opportunity is dwindling greatly. The funny thing is, if I were to try to forecast it, I would suggest that at some point in time, there is going to be a greater need for more third-party providers as the government, if it's continuing this trajectory, continues to shrink. There are going to be more organizations, not-for-profit or otherwise, that are providing the services that the government no longer provides. And so, right, that gives the ability for expansion on the outside. To get those kick-started, specifically related to a new technology that could benefit folks, the social services side of things on the homelessness piece. I don't mean to be cold-hearted when I say this, but unless it translates to a dollar value, I don't see it happening. And so that by means is the direct outcome of capitalism, which I have renamed crapitalism. And so when people care more about profit and value, and that's their number one evaluation, and it is not people and well-being, you end up with the shit show that we're in now. And so in order to change that, the entire community must change. I fortunately live in a very small community that I intend on having that impact in. And I think there's a really, really good book called Ishmael. I forgot who wrote it, but it basically talks about how scale ruins everything. Their specific contribution is that when we learned how to make food, we no longer cared about feeding and taking care of those immediately around us in our community. We were just like, oh my God, we can make food, we can grow, we can grow, we can go, we can go. And then everybody just focused on growth, 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 growth. And nobody cared about the communities anymore. And so I unfortunately think that there are very, very few and far between enterprises or governments that truly, truly care about their citizens. But there are models and modalities that you can create and come up with to demonstrate long-term value that could potentially support what you want to achieve. And so I have a friend of mine, actually, hey, Eli, he's down in Florida, down in Jacksonville now. And he's created a model, an educational profile that he took to a small island country. And he demonstrated to the country, look, we're going to do this education profile. We're going to create this educational pathway. And we're going to teach all of these people, and we're taking 1,000 people, and we're going to teach them how to do tech support, call center jobs. And we're going to take 1,000 people, and we're going to have a 35% success rate. And it's going to, over 20 years, generate this amount of taxable revenue for you. And these people are going to stay here and they're going to invest. And then it's also going to create and increase your property value. And it's going to be this much. And he put this all together and he gave it to this tiny little island country. And they were like, brilliant. The cost of your program is less than the value that we're going to get out of all of this new revenue over this next 20 years. That I love it, endorsed it, signed it, and off he goes. And so I think it's going to take something like that. I sadly don't believe that those large organizations care about people anymore. That's a sad state of affairs. Sorry to be a little bit of a downer.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Hey, yes, sir, absolutely.
So, using your example, that could be used to forecast to be able to do the same thing. So, the cost of an individual who might be homeless or low income or suffered from a biblical flood, in a sense, they have services and needs that they need to be addressed, and that impacts the whole system or the community that you have. So if it's just one person, there is a cost, and that's something you can kind of calculate. But if it's individuals and families in a community that is affected by that, that also is a cost that is impacted by the county and the city and the state. That number cost has to be come from somewhere. They just that those individual people must be taken care of either through the government or through, altruism. If the government comes into play, putting a business together to address those needs and connecting those individuals to healthcare services and social services can be mitigated by covering at a lower rate by finding more technological ways to address those issues. Wouldn't that be enticing to a government or the surrounding community to be able to help those impacted using technology as opposed to doing the more altruistic approach or the traditional approach that's been done before to help these individuals?
Yeah, I think presenting technology and our current buzzword is AI. So whatever you do, even if it's not AI, just say it has AI in it.
Hmm.
As a pathway to generate them value doing something new, I think you'll at least get an ear. And
Okay.
the government focus is going to be different everywhere and anywhere. And so, I would say do your due diligence in finding out what their overall real needs are and try to tailor the conversation to those needs and demonstrate the value in the solution.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's super, super, super generic. That's exactly what I'm doing here in Asheville. And now I don't know what market you're in, but my town is tiny, right? We have 90,000 people in the city of Asheville. My first approach is going to be going to the city of Asheville and saying, hey, listen, over the course of the last 12 months, I helped educate 1,000 people on my own by myself doing this. It translated to this amount of jobs. Imagine if we actually had a formalized program that did this. Yeah, I'm pausing, Ali. I see you're intruded a little bit. Yes, sir.
Oh, I mean, so I can understand, yeah, that I've done something like that. I'm in a slightly bigger market. I'm in San Diego, California. And so it's kind of like the same. Uh, we're a little bit bigger market, but the system I'm trying to come into play is to work with, again, people who are low income and low income, low to moderate income individuals who are experiencing physical, mental, and social chronic illness. And when I mean social chronic illness, is homelessness is one of them,
Yeah.
or addressing mental issues. And this can affect these people who are experiencing these issues. They affect the economy because those are people who can't go to work, those people that can't go to school, those are people that can't pay taxes. And so that's what I was thinking about. Because I am in a bigger market, it's harder to navigate that system and network with those individuals. Putting together a technology to do that, to be able to do that, would presenting it to a smaller market be more, again, this comes to through business development and networking,
Oh,
would
yeah.
presenting to a smaller market, like a smaller town, small city, the same type of strategy and same type of business model
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
successful?
Totally. And then, let me add one thing to it too, right? So, you've got your model based on your economic factors and whatnot. I would highly recommend you do a little bit of research on the economic factors inside of the community. So like, let's call it what it is. You're thinking about Asheville. Hey, we've got this problem. You're a smaller community. Steve, you might know everybody that I would need to talk to, and I'd be very happy to see what you've got, see what the idea is. And if we can identify how well that works and how well it could work, and we could develop a model, could I then introduce you to people in our community that could push this through? Absolutely. But make sure it's on our scale, right? And so, as Eli and I have hinted at, people in this community don't make nearly as much money as they do in other communities. Our government's total budget and total spending, it's tiny, it's minuscule. Even though property taxes are pretty darn high, it's nominal, because in the long run, we may have 90,000 people, but our government is so focused on trying to take care of the 12 or 15 million people that come and visit. And so, they've created all these pathways and whatnot. So I'm very happy to, if you were thinking of Asheville or another market like that, be very happy to take a look.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that'd be great. That's what I was saying. I was like, it's a question, but it's like a solicitation on
Totally.
a
Yeah, I
small
got it.
together.
Got it. Got it
So
completely.
yeah, it's I'm trying to take advantage of like Eli's advice, networking, and taking advantage and ask questions and seeking opportunities.
Awesome.
There we go. Okay, so Jock and Ollie. Can I intrude? I wonder how this is gonna go. Ollie, you can intrude.
Hello, hello, Eli. It's a pleasure to watch your videos, and this is my first time doing such a thing. And what an impressive guest you have here with you. I'm delighted to be part of this, and thank you for the opportunity. I have one question to your guest, please. Um, he seems like a humble guy, and that humbleness is apparent through his words and his body language and his demeanor, if you will. So what I took from him is that he's a very successful guy, but I want him to talk about what makes him successful. What's the thing that he does best that brought him up to this level? And like, the more successful he is, the more humble he is. So it's hard to do, but I'm asking him to do it as well. And I love you, Eli, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
I'm going to follow up first by saying I also love you, Eli. And Ali, those are the kindest words I've ever heard. So thank you very much. When your goal, and I'll specifically talk about my goal, my true goal is the growth in my community, and it is not altruistic. I want my kids and my future kids to have a great place to live and work. And so everybody's like, oh, Steve, you do all these things for the community. You're helping out and doing whatever you can. What makes me tick on the inside is to be of service to people. And everything I do around that. I started as a technologist, and I wanted to solve that problem because I knew it was going to help somebody. It was going to help my boss. It was going to help my customers. And so I always wanted to be doing the very next thing that I could do to help someone out. And that's like, you look at your inner core, you identify the kind of person you are. I feel so. I'm very thankful that I recognized that pretty early in life. The other thing that I recognized early in life was that I wanted to be a father, and I wanted to be able to provide to my kids. And now I do consider that I have a lot of kids in Western North Carolina. I think there's like 4,500 kids in our immediate school system that I'm trying to help and serve. But Ali, here's the thing. When I recognize that capitalism is a sure path to shit, I wanted to create a different modality of thinking where people are the most important factor in my life. It's not money. I may come across as successful. I live in a small, modest house. I don't drive a fancy car. I don't need a fancy car. You know, I have the ability to take my friends and my colleagues out to eat. I don't eat out by myself unless I'm taking them out. I don't have that need. So in my world, my success is the growth of my community and what I can give to the next generations coming on. I don't expect that from anybody. I don't want that from anybody. There have got to be people out there who are driven to say, you know, what makes me the most happy and what makes me successful is I want to create this badass super technical solution. I want to create warp drive. There's got to be somebody that does that. Unfortunately, our current guy who does that is probably the worst human being that we've had on this planet in many generations. But, you know, it takes all types. And so in my story, my pathway is could be different from anybody else's pathway as well. But, you know, in something I said earlier, math, science, English, community service. That needs to be taught to everybody at the onset. We need to be positively contributing to the growth of our community and our society. Or if you don't, you will take advantage of it. You will destroy it. You will deplete from it. You will make it a hell on earth for future generations. You need to give and not take.
Fair enough. We got Gopi. Let's see. Thanks, Steve. Being a technologist, how do you guide someone wanting to learn technical fiber network for jobs? How does one get started with learning fiber to the premises technology?
Oh, dude. So first thing, be curious about it. Go to your ISP and ask if you can install it. Actually, you can look up Master Fiber Contractor and find businesses that do that. They will absolutely hire you without experience if you are willing to learn. All right, hold on. I say that. Woo! Let me step back. In my market, your market may be different, right? And so local community colleges should teach classes in how to do it. You can find videos on how to splice fiber online. There are contracting courseworks. There are electrician classes that you can all take, the IBEW, I think it is. There are lots and lots of formalized classes. I highly recommend supporting your local community college if you have one. They tend to be able to give you education at the time that you need it, and you don't necessarily have to follow through their curriculum.
So is it that easy? Like, are ISPs, do they need it that much? Because I know I looked at the whole fiber thing back when I had my company. It was actually kind of expensive to go through the certification on your own. It was a few $1,000s. And so again, I warn everybody, be careful about spending a few $1,000s if you don't guarantee a job at the end. Like,
and you need 4,000 practical hours, right? And so in order to get certified, oh yeah, totally. So that's why I say go there. If you're ready and willing to learn, you apprentice.
Okay.
Right. And so you get the learning experience, you know, they'll make you climb up and down the poles. They'll make you climb the ladders and extend the stuff, dig, fish through walls. You just got to, and I've done all of it. I don't care to get certified. I want to know what was involved in doing it. And so, yeah, you can absolutely apprentice. In our area, I'll highly invite you, come to Asheville, meet MD Haynes. They have their own educational programs to teach anybody who's willing how to do all aspects of their organization's professional service deployment, which is electric, HVAC, plumbing, fiber, and cabling. And so, they have divisions that all do that, and they recognize the need for more, and they create educational opportunities for those. So, yeah, check those out. Check out the community colleges.
That's cool. From Robbie. Okay, yeah, everybody, you can raise your hand and you can verbally do this, so I don't have to do this. But from Robbie.
It's so much fun hearing it from you.
Are there any major competitors eyeing your market share? Any concerns of ERC being acquired?
Always, right? I mean, if you don't if you don't protect yourself and operate from that perspective, you can never, what am I trying to say? You can never get complacent. There is never a time where you're the only person providing a service like that. Somebody else can always come in. And so, we do have the most amount of fiber in our ground. Our owner has financial commitments that they must absolutely follow. It would be ignorant of me to think that the right opportunity couldn't come by and present itself to Brad and his investor for them to say, oh wow, that's too much money to say no to, right? That can always happen. And so do I think there are any? I mean, sure, I would say Conterra, Segra, Spectrum, AT&T, they could all say, you know what? We could do so much more, and we could do so much better if we just ingested this organization. And they slap down a check in front of Brad's face, and he reads across the check like this, trying to count all those zeros. I would do the same thing. Yeah, I would of course then invest it in community service projects, but still.
Yeah. What do you think the end game? So again, most of the time when I'm talking to people, I'm talking more startup world. You're not Brad, but like, what do you think the end game of ERC as an employee of ERC? What do you think the end game is? Because you're not gonna, I doubt you're gonna IPO. Is this thing just gonna kind of just be just some kind of legacy business that keeps trucking along for 100 years?
Yeah, but the Brad's vision and my vision for community development are aligned.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we want to do. We want to be able to leverage this technology that we're putting into the ground and delivering everywhere and anywhere to improve the well-being in the community and the people in the community all around us. And it is not just internet and technical, right? Education, food service. I doubt we can tackle home costs, but anything and anywhere that we can have a positive impact, that's what we want to do. So he and I had over beer or bourbon, looked at our financial, our gross, and our projections, and there's like a slot inside of our budget. But once we hit this specific part in this curve, that there's an entire segment here that we're going to just be committing to technology education, to the school systems and whatnot, as a scholarship or as an apprenticeship or whatever, adding more value into the system.
Cool. So you guys are focused on the broadband or the fiber thing. Do you have a plan for the day after fiber? Because again, we are now at the world of, I mean, there's Starlink, but Kuiper is going up now. China's putting up their thing. I mean, these low Earth orbit ISPs, again, whatever they are today, again, 2030 is going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
So like, is there a day after fiber for you guys?
Yeah. So, we're thinking about a wireless backup solution. It's not fast enough yet. At some point in time, in order to long haul large data, it must traverse a physical platform. It just has to. And so the limitations over air are greater than the limitations over fiber. Do I think they can both coexist? Yes. Do I know of our plans to be able to provide both? Yes. We want to be able to leverage wireless to get to areas that we can't serve immediately so that we can provide a service in a 30 to 60 month window as opposed to a 3 to 6 month window. And that way we can provide the service and then build in. And so, we're already looking at being able to do that. And I saw a next question, can there be enough fiber? Probably not. So here's the bad thing. I don't want to call any developer out there right now shitty, but developers have gotten so damn complacent. They all suck. They all suck up, and I mean suck up all of these resources out of your computer because you think that everybody in the world's got 100 megs and these operations work. Man, when I was programming, a computer had 4 megs of memory. And there was nothing going on in these databases that I wasn't doing back in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. When a DSL line was the golden gift that you could subscribe to, and that still cost you $14,000 a month, we were writing much more efficient code. On the outside of that, there are some really, really talented developers doing fantastic new things, but they don't have a limitation drawing them back. There's so much resource available to them. They're just like, I'm just going to engorge this entire thing and write this massively fat construct. And I don't care because everybody in the world's got a gig. Well, that is also allowing my organization to take advantage of your poor programming and enforcing fiber to the premise and every place else that we can so that a gig of bandwidth is easy to get.
So kind of coming about the 2 hours. So I do have two questions I'm interested in, if you will answer them. So going to the government, first one, we'll talk about tariffs. Practically, so again, you've talked about these fiber lines. Where the hell does your fiber actually come from? And so how does whatever the hell's going on with the administration, like it or hate it, how is that affecting your guys' next year, 2 year plans?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that accurately. I can't.
Okay.
And I can't for two reasons. One, we have not yet seen an increase in cost. We
Okay.
do buy our fiber from a local North Carolina organization. I don't know what their constraints are. Some of our fiber is literally manufactured in the state, and some of it is imported. What I don't know is which ones come from out of the country.
Yeah. Okay. And then the final one, we'll get to his Hisquagopi again. So then also, so we were talking after Helene, and so you had a tremendous amount of your fiber lines taken out because of Helene. And then we were talking that you would actually, like the Small Business Association had agreed to loan you money, but then they ran out of money to be able to provide you. So in this modern context, you had one administration, now you have a different administration. As a real business supporting all these people in Western North Carolina, is any government doing much for you? Again, and you can hate either side. So this is kind of an equal opportunity like or hate side thing here.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Not our federal government, not our state government.
So the federal government's not doing anything?
I mean, they authorized the SBA loan,
Yeah.
and we're still following up with them, waiting to get our response back. And that's a loan, right? So they give us $2 million, and we still have to pay back the $2 million. So does that really help a business? Now it helps our business, right? We are not your typical startup. We have 20 some odd years in experience. We're making over $10 million a year. We can pay back that loan and it not be detrimental to us. We can use the $2 million that we could get from them to augment and deploy more fiber, because every foot of fiber that we deploy literally translates to pennies or dollars for us. So there is a direct return on that investment for us. Most small businesses in our area they can't absorb a $2 million loan. They don't make as much money as we do in the long run. They haven't been around for 25 years either, 25 years. Our direct need was more along the lines of immediate response, right? We had sections, miles upon miles, tens of miles of fiber in multiple locations that were wiped literally down the mountainside. Yeah. Both east and west. We did hear about a piece of equipment that was located in Tennessee. That's kind of cool. And so, having to replace that fiber, and if you all remember, I said earlier, it's $12 a foot aerial and $22, $25 a foot underground. We calculated how much fiber that we lost, including the equipment, and it was more than $2 million. We had at the very onset, based on the information that we were getting, we were like, oh shit, we're going to be $5 to $10 million in damages total across our entire network. So we were fortunate in that what we forecast as a curve did not have as high a slope. And so it tapered off very, very quickly. And there were a lot of things that we did early on in order to adjust, because within 7 days and going to the SBA and the SBA saying we didn't have any money, and this was early October, and then coming back and saying, and by the way, we're not going to have any money because we're not going to do anything until there's the new administration in place, and they're not going to do anything until December, January, or February. And so, when you need $5 million in order to repair your network, and your avenue to get less than half of that is ripped away from you, you get concerned. And so, as we were navigating the first days after Helene, and we reached out to our community governments, Buncombe County came through wonderfully. It is a fantastic run county. Yes, it is. It doesn't tackle the education aspects that I wanted to tackle eventually, but it recognized its need to support us, to support communications in our region. We were the only fiber provider with connectivity down into Atlanta, and so we were the only ones providing internet. We have a data center south of town. We were their only connection for their thousands of customers. And so, emergency services, the hospitals and what, they were all relying on us. Buncombe County recognized that and helped us with our process. And so forever thankful, forever grateful. I live in Buncombe County.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing, though. So, because one of the big things that we're hearing about right now is basically everything in the world should be privatized. So, again, like it or hate it, but let's just take that as it is. If everything's within the government, then it is within this governmental community, and you do have ways to communicate with people. If everything gets privatized, so like with you guys, you're private, how do those relationships actually get created so you know who the hell to talk to when there's a problem? So like if the utility lines are part of the government and utility line goes down, the governor knows who to scream at. Whereas if everything's kind of private, where are those lines of communication?
Yeah, so North Carolina, we're ahead of the curve in that because it is completely privatized in our community, which
Yeah.
is really interesting. And so in other areas where it's not, I mean, it takes time, right? And that's what business development and community development is all about. It's my job to make sure that we have those relationships in place. Can I tell you guys a fantastic story about Helene?
Sure.
All right, cool. I know we're at 6 minutes over. So one of our core facilities is in this federal data center in Asheville. And that federal data center has a chiller, which requires water in order to provide cooling for the facility. And so our entire region lost power and water. We were out of water for at least a month and not drinkable water for 56 days, 53, 56, whatever, 50 days. Who's counting? Who cares about the last 3 days?
Yeah.
And so if you paid attention, data center, cooling, water, not available. And we had a generator, so we could run fans and cooling, but we recognized within the first 24 hours that if we didn't get water back, our data center was going to have to go dark. So I say to our legal counsel, when I get them on the phone 24 hours later, because we didn't have cell service until I was in a region that I could actually get a hold of somebody. I said, well, what about the Asheville Fire Department? The fire trucks can hold water. They could just plug into our building. And my legal counsel was like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And he hung up on me because he picked up the phone and he called the city of Asheville. And he said, hey, we need water from the fire trucks. The city of Asheville said, oh, and this is why the city of Asheville uses this too. The city of Asheville said, that's a great idea. We're sending 2 trucks. And so they blocked off north French Broad along the side of the data center. They set up a giant retention pond. They ran a truck to Beaver Lake, sucked in water to Beaver Lake, trucked it over to the pond, to that retention pond, dumped it into the retention pond, sucked it off the top to try to get cleaner water, fed the sprinkler system into the building, and then from the top of the building where the sprinkler system output is, fed that directly into the chillers.
Jesus Christ.
And they were doing that 24/7, by the way, for 17 straight days, 19 straight days. They got the county involved because they just, everybody was getting tired after 2 weeks. And so we needed more support. And so the city and the county were running fire trucks constantly until the 35th day or whatever it was when water was finally restored to that building.
Damn.
Small town, good relationships. And by the way, if you are a business or a residence, you should always feel comfortable reaching out to your local fire department and your local police department and asking them what their response time is to your office or your residence. They get those kind of questions all the time. People just don't think that they can ask that.
Interesting.
The cool
You got time for one more question from somebody?
All right.
All right, Jock. Jock always asks questions. What's up, Jock?
Question. So again, it's a different. It might be a different situation, and it's a small city, but it's incredible that you said you got the fire department to use water to cool a data center. With most fire departments, they're mandated to get rid of their water because it's sitting in the side, and it can't be used for any other resource other than to get rid of for forest fires. So to do that, I mean, was that like a leak? Like again, I heard how you said it, but like, did he go to his congressman or whatever to get that accomplished? Because that's most fire departments, and I used to work with one. They're mandated they cannot use water for anything. Again, it's in a bigger district. They can't use water for anything else. Was this because of his emergency situation with Helena? You thinking?
No, I don't think anybody cared at that point in time, right? I'm happy to reach out to the city and ask them again, and I can get that answer for us. Yeah.
No, no biggie. But it was just so curious because yeah, like in California, and I know in Illinois, they cannot use water for anything else. But again, it was an emergency situation
Yeah.
for that, because if not, they're supposed to dump it in the river or put it back in a reservoir for possibly obvious reasons. But it was just curious that you were able to cool a data center with the water from fire trucks, and that was just amazing.
From a lake.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you bet.
Oh, I reached out to you at an email.
Cool, cool. I saw that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so we are over the 2 hour mark. Got to talk for 2 hours.
Imagine, Eli, if we did this over a beer or a bourbon.
No more bourbon, no more bourbon. Anyways, so final thoughts from you. Like, is there any final biz dev? Again, we got startup people here, we got young people. What advice can you give?
Yeah, yeah. So I got a couple of things. Um, there is no prescribed method, period. Trust your intuition, right? So I haven't been trained in anything that I'm doing now. I just do it with a passion, and I do it with a curiosity, and that is more than sufficient. And I am considered by some an extraordinary person in what it is I do. I, cool. That's awesome. My goal is to serve that everything else that's added to that or yeah, additive to that. It's nice. It's icing on the cake. If you want to get into business development, specifically sales, the key there is truly, like, if you look at it from a numbers perspective, it's how many times at bat you're going to get. And if you burn through your database of people and it's done, you're going to be constantly looking. If you navigate carefully and create relationships, you can create repeat customers over and over and over again. And so there is sales process, but the relationship and understanding the value that you can provide to person or organization is the most critical aspect. And so think before you burn that bridge or break that relationship or ruin that contact. I much prefer spearfishing than net fishing.
Cool. Good advice. Good advice. So, okay. So we've had Steve Newman. You guys have learned a lot about business development. I will remind you folks, especially since you guys do the one-on-one calls with me, you'll notice I showed up with a clipboard with a lot of questions, right? So again, when you're going to have a conversation with somebody, don't, like, it's not just I talked with him. It's like, why the hell are you having a conversation? What information are you interested in? I'm just hint for Mondays, hint for Mondays. Anyways, so we're gonna have more of these. My hope is to do these about once a week. We'll see how that goes. I have to get people, to actually agree to it. So it's good to have Steve here. I'll keep Steve here for a little bit longer, and then I will boot all of you guys out. So this is officially over. So see you
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.